What's up? I'm Daniel Keith, and I'm gonna do my AFC West predictions today. There might be a little bit of a bias because I'm a Raiders fan, but it's not. It doesn't come out too bad. So here's the list. What I did was I created a list: Oakland, Kansas City, Denver Broncos, and San Diego, and then I put every position from wide receiver to punter, like every position on the team, and I ranked it. One being the best in the division, four being the worst in the division. So at the end of the video, you add them all up, and the lowest number is the one that is most likely to win the division just off of position standpoint. So we'll start off with the wide receiver position. Number 4 is going to have to go to San Diego. Anytime you lose a Vincent Jackson and you don't pick anybody else up that replaces that, then you basically don't have anybody. And it was pretty predominant last year how Antonio Gates was injured, so Philip Rivers didn't have that crutch to lean on, and Vincent Jackson was out a lot of the season, so he had the worst season he's had since he's been in the NFL in Philip Rivers because of the fact he didn't have anybody to throw to. So you lose Vincent Jackson and you don't pick anybody else up. I mean, Brown's the only other receiver they got, and he's not even a top flight wide receiver, so I have to give them a 4. Kansas City got a 3. They got Dwayne Bowe. Other than that, I mean, their best receiver is out of the backfield, and it's Jamal Charles' backup. Denver Broncos are number 2. Denarius Thomas, he's pretty good. You got Eric Decker, he's pretty good. So they don't really have like great wide receivers, but because Peyton Manning, he makes average receivers look great. I mean, Marvin Harrison did all that as an undersized, underspeed receiver because of the fact that Peyton Manning could put the ball perfectly on spot in coverage. Same with Reggie Wayne isn't the greatest receiver ever, but he looks like he's great because Peyton Manning threw to him for so much. Dallas Clark, undersized tight end, has all these productive yards and stuff because Peyton Manning. So just because Peyton Manning's there, you almost gotta rate the receivers higher. Plus, there's nobody else in the division with really that much talent at wide receiver. I guess number 1 goes to the Raiders, just because of the fact that you got Hayward Bay, almost 1,000 yards receiving last year. Jacoby Ford is a super weapon in the slot. Denarius Moore had one of the breakout rookie years of last year, pretty good. And then we went out and picked up Kreiner in the draft, who all the quarterbacks can't stop talking about. They say this guy's great, goes up there, makes those spectacular catches. He's a slot kind of like go up the middle, make those tough yard catches, which we really need because we have the speed to break you downfield. So I think right now, just on paper, the Raiders have the best receiving core. Let's go to quarterback. In the most stacked quarterback position or division in the league. 4 goes to Kansas City just because, I mean, Matt Castle isn't anything. He got that big contract just because Belichick has a good scheme set up in New England, basically. So I guess, therefore, just by default, Raiders are 3. Carson Palmer's a great quarterback, and if he can go back to what he was, he goes right back to being a top 5 quarterback. But right now, he's a question mark because he came off the couch last year and he didn't have a great year, but that's understandable. So this year's his full off season with the Raiders, gets to know the wide receivers, gets to do all that. So we'll see how that turns out. But number 2, you got to give it to San Diego. Philip Rivers is still a beast quarterback. He just doesn't have anybody to throw to, kind of screw him. But he still has that rocket arm. He still can fit those balls in tight areas, and he gives his receivers chances to go up and make catches. So you have to put him in number 2. And number 1, anytime Peyton Manning's in a list, you almost got to put him in number 1. Right now, I'd rank, as of like right this second, Tom Brady I think is better, Aaron Rodgers is better, and Brees is better. Other than that, you can't really look around the league and say there's any quarterback that you would want on your team more than a Peyton Manning, healthy Peyton Manning. Fullback is kind of a dying breed in the NFL at this point. The Raiders are one of the few teams that really utilize a fullback in Marcel Reese, who was a converted wide receiver. He's a selfless blocker. He put on a lot of weight. He just He's fast, can hit, can catch, does everything. So he got a 1. And then basically Kansas City's 2 because their running game's so good and they actually use a fullback. Denver, they lost their best fullback in Tim Tebow, as Brian Urlacher would say. But really, they don't really run a fullback that much. They ran a option offense last year. And San Diego, they spread you out, and Ryan Matthews gets stuffed in the backfield. They don't really have a fullback. Tolbert was the closest thing to a fullback they had, and he's gone now. So they don't really have a fullback. As far as running back goes, nobody got a 4 in this category because 2 teams got a 1. I gave San Diego a 3 because Matthews, even when he's healthy, isn't a dominant player. He doesn't put fear into you like, oh, he's going to change the game. No, he's just not that person. Denver Broncos, Noshawn Marino, easily injured. He's out a lot, and their starting running back's good, but he's older and he's just not as dominant as Oakland and Kansas City's. Both Oakland and Kansas City got a 1 in this category because Darren McFadden is an absolute animal when he's healthy, and same with Jamal Charles. When he's healthy, there's few running backs that are better than those two. Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, and Maurice Jones-Drew. Even Arian Foster isn't better than those two. They're still in that top, I think, top 5, top 6 running backs in the league. Offensive line, San Diego, you lost your left tackle. You couldn't block fast rushing teams in the pass offense, and your running wasn't great either. So I gave you guys a 4. Denver Broncos, great run blocking. Led the league in rushing, but that's all you did was rush, and people seem to forget Kyle Orton started the season at the quarterback position, and he was on his butt most of the games. They just couldn't keep anybody from getting to him, which is why I don't really think Peyton Manning is going to stay healthy this year, because when you look when they had an actual quarterback in there who stayed in the pocket, he was just getting beat up. You can't rush people at Tim Tebow because of the fact that if you leave a gap, he's going to run right through it. And so you're basically playing a prevent run defense versus the Denver Broncos last year. So you didn't get a good pass rush. This year, they're going to be a passing team, so you're going to be able to pass rush, and it's going to show because their passing blocking isn't very good. Kansas City, Castle was on the ground all the time. So was their second string. I don't even know his name. He sucked. But their run blocking is pretty good. They had second string running backs, still had a lot of yards. Got to give it up to them for that. So they're going to be they have a pretty good offensive line. And number one, I got to give it to Oakland. I mean, we had the least amount of sacks in the division with Campbell. He was upright most of the time, and we run block like crazy. Darren McFadden was leading the league in rushing until he went out. He goes out. Michael Bush comes in, still has 900-something yards rushing, and he was getting run down from behind. He wasn't even getting stopped in the hole. He was having just holes blown open for him, and so you got to give it to our offensive line at least. Right over the defensive line. Again, I gave 2 number 1s in this category too. San Diego got a 3 again. They don't really strike fear into you. Their defensive line isn't dominant. They don't really block up holes. They leave gaps, so I don't really give them a good grade. Denver Broncos, again, their linebackers have to play really hard for that defensive line because that defensive line, they don't really have a true nose tackle. They're playing 3-4. They're just not very good. I mean, the reason I put them over San Diego is because they do a good job at making holes for Von Miller and Doomerville to come in on blitzes and stuff, but other than that, they're just not very stout. At Kansas City, though, they just drafted Dontari Poe, who's one of those height, speed kind of guys that you think the Raiders would draft, but they've spent a lot of money and a lot of draft picks over the past 5 years on defensive line, and it's starting to show because they're very hard to run the ball against. They get a lot of pressure with 4 men, and they don't have to run blitzes, which means they drop a lot of people in the coverage and come up with a lot of interceptions. So I have to rank them with a 1, and I give the Raiders a 1 too because Richard Seymour, Thomas Kelly, Matt Shaughnessy, Lamar Houston, we got a stout defensive line. They make a lot of pressure, and they get held a lot, and we don't get called for it. But you want to roll back some tape and just look at people getting on our defensive line tackled to the ground, held from behind, and they don't call it, but they still create havoc and just destroy offensive lines. This year it's going to be even more predominant that we got a real defensive coordinator. Al Davis isn't screwing it up for us. Linebacker, one has to go to Denver Broncos. I mean, they bring the pressure. They got stud linebackers. They're beast. Two has to go to KC. One of their guys made the top 100 list. They're a legit team. I'd be scared of them. I'm scared of them at linebacker too. They got a good defense. San Diego comes in at 3. They've been bringing the heat. They've been trying to get people in after they've been doing a lot of drafting after Merriman left. So they're kind of stout at defense or at linebacker, but the Raiders got a 4 on that one because we just suck at linebacker. I mean, Aaron Curry, he's okay. We brought in Sean Wheeler or whatever his name is. He's hopefully going to be decent. Doesn't look like McLean's going to be playing for us this year. He's going to be suspended or in jail or both because he's getting screwed for that, what he did in Alabama. And you're just an idiot. You're making all this money and you still pull a stupid stunt like that. Like, you deserve to not play. You deserve to be in jail. So I don't feel bad for you one bit. At cornerback, we've got one going to Kansas City. They've just got stout corners. They're hard to throw against. They hit you early. They hit you often. So I have to give it to them. You got Denver Broncos, who have a pretty good Champ Bailey, who's old, but he's still a dominant kind of guy. And you got San Diego, Jammer. He's okay. When you have speed against them, they don't know what to do with it. But Oakland again comes in with a 4 on this one. Lost some guys, were not very good. Injury prone. People throw all over us. Horrible defense. We'll see about this year. We picked up some okay guys, but none of them are household names, and we're going to have to really scheme to protect our defense from being weak. So it's going to be a lot of defensive scheme, not good players that make us good on our back end. As far as safety goes, I gave 3 teams in our division a 1 on this. Denver Broncos, Brian Dawkins retired, but they still have a real good defensive safeties. They drafted some good players. They're going to be stout. Kansas City, Eric Berry, you got some great players on their team too. Oakland gave them a 1 too because Tyvon Branch, you got Michael Huff, you got some good players. Mike Mitchell's a good backup. Giordano, he plugged in okay when he came last year, but hopefully he doesn't have to play because he's definitely a downgrade from what we have. San Diego has to pick up a 2 just because I couldn't give him a 4 with everybody else getting a 1 because Eric Weddle doesn't do anything for you. You're just not really dominant, and it's kind of sad. The next 2 positions are kicker and punter. And I think you guys know who takes that one. I mean, to give the Raiders a 1 on both of those has nothing to do with a bias. That's just, there's no other better kicker in the league who can kick 60-yard field goals. And punting, he's the best punter in the league too. So we take 1 on those. I give Denver Broncos a 2 on both of those because they got pretty good punting and kicking. And San Diego gets a 4 for their kicker. He misses a lot. And 3 for their punter. He's okay. And Kansas City gets a 3 and a 4. So when you add it all up, Oakland comes out with 19, Kansas City 25, Denver 20, and San Diego 35. So by the numbers, it's saying Oakland's going to come in first, Denver Broncos are going to come in second, Kansas City's going to come in 3, and San Diego's going to come in 4th, which I agree with the 4th place San Diego Chargers because they're going to be garbage for a while. North Turner's going to be gone. They're going to have to start rebuilding all the way around just like the Raiders did. Kansas City's, I think, going to win the division next year. They're going to be real good. And I think the Raiders will make the wild card. But I think we're going to be good. And Denver Broncos, they lost their defensive coordinator. I don't see Peyton Manning is staying healthy, so we'll see how it goes for them. But that's what I think. I think overall it's going to be Kansas City, Oakland, Denver, then San Diego. We'll see how it plays out, see how they actually live up to what they look like on paper. Um, there could be people that come out and be studs for their teams that don't look good now, or vice versa, people that look like they're going to be studs and come out and don't play. So I guess the only way to figure it out for real is watch the season. But thanks for watching.